Hi, everyone. This is Constellations for Individuals, class number 1. So for just a moment, this is going to be cacophony. I'm going to unmute everyone, and you say hello, and then I'll remute you, okay?
Okay.
So, hello!
Hi!
Okay, that was a horrible noise. I'm muting you all. Okay. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to connect and speak and ask questions and whatnot, but we keep things muted because of the number of people on the call to make sure that, background sound doesn't create feedback and all that wacky stuff. Okay, so I am Leslie Nips. I'm your guide for the next 5 weeks. I'm calling from Oakland, California, and this class is Constellations for Individuals. Congratulations for signing up for this and welcome. And I'm glad several of you are taking up my invitation to eat. That's just fine. Good to have you here. So just a couple of orientation bits about Zoom for those of you who are new to Zoom. It can be very helpful if you find that things aren't working well. The main thing we need is strong internet service. So if you don't have strong internet service, there isn't much we can do about that. But there are a few things that can help your computer along. I mentioned in the email, turn off all your other apps, Word, Excel, whatever else you got running in the back, turn those off, close those, and close all the other, you can't close your browser, Safari or whatever you're using, but close all the other browser tabs if you can. That will help your computer along. Worst comes to worst, if you're really struggling, you can turn off your video. There's a toggle in the bottom left. On computers, the display's a little different on mobiles and tablets, so you'll have to find that. But it's like a mute video. So if you mute the video, then you're just hearing for a little while, and sometimes that can stabilize it for a bit. Screen views, upper right-hand corner on computers, you will notice something that says either speaker view or gallery view. Go ahead and click on that to see what happens to your screen. Most of us are going to like having the gallery view where we can see everyone equally. If I am doing a lecture, you might want it on speaker view, and then you get me really big. But that's just a convenience for you. If you do have earbuds or a headset, it can be really helpful to use it. Again, it helps manage some of the feedback issues when you start working one-on-one with people. It can just help. So if you don't have them now, that's fine. But I'm even just using the earbuds I got with my smartphone, and they work. Sound muting is in the bottom left, and you have control over your own muting, and I can always kind of override you and remute you after you have muted yourself or unmute you, but you do have control over that in the bottom left. There's also, you will notice alongside the video and the mute in the bottom left, there's like a little caret. If you click on that, you can troubleshoot at greater depths. You can play with that at your own, if you need to increase the volume or something like that. Oftentimes, you just want to be, if you're really having trouble hearing someone or someone's too loud, you can just use the up and down volume right on your keyboard, and that will take care of you. Chat function is at the bottom of the screen. Generally speaking, you will be chatting with everybody. Feel free, because this is a big class, we can't have, people just speaking up, but feel free during the course, that was really cool, or someone asks a question and talks about working with children, and you've worked with children, and you want to type in the chat, Patricia, I work with children, I'll talk to you later, that kind of thing. So feel free to use that. It's kind of a nice thing to be able to do two things at the same time. By and large, I can answer questions as we're going along, but another way to ask questions is to shoot it into the chat, and I should see it there if I'm keeping track. You'll also note at the bottom of your screen, there's a way to digitally raise your hand. as a way for me to call on you. But there's a small enough group of people, you can just do this and let me know you have a question. The other thing, I noticed one phone, that's great. If you're having audio problems, but your video is working just fine, you can stay on the video on your computer or phone or whatever it is that you're doing, and then you can use the phone numbers that I sent you and just call on the phone. In which case there would be like a video slot of you and an audio slot of you. That's just an advanced troubleshooting technique if you're needing it. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about Zoom. Any questions about Zoom? Everyone feeling comfortable with Zoom? Okay, I love Zoom. You know, it's like the perfect boyfriend. It does everything I want it to do. So I hope you enjoy this platform as much as I do. So now what I want us to do is a very quick introduction. We have a lot of people. We don't want to spend a lot of time on this. You're here to get content. But we're doing Family Constellations, which is a modality that cares about caring for systems, right? And so there are ways to care about systems. And one of them is to make sure people have a chance to sort of introduce themselves briefly. And we get it. You're not expected to remember anyone's names. Zoom is really great in that it's showing everyone's names except on the phone. We'll get to that in just a moment, whoever's on the phone. But so you're probably not going to remembering anyone's names, and you might not even remember where people are from or anything that anyone says. But it gives us a sense of us a little bit. So what I'm going to invite you to do is just share your name, where you're calling from tonight out loud, truly briefly, because you're going to get a minute and I'm going to time you. Just kind of your background, your Constellations background. If you want to name the training you took, if you took one, just your background a little bit. And one thing you really want from this class. So your name, where you're calling from tonight, your Constellations background, and one thing you're really hoping to get from the class, okay? And I'm going to be in charge of asking people to go. And I'm going to start with Judith. You are unmuted. Judith, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Judith May, and I live in San Francisco. My constellation experience is from just this past Sunday. Leslie led a group at Cynthia, who's down on the bottom row, at Cynthia's home. And I was very intrigued. I'm a professional musician and a trained psychotherapist, and I'm hoping to begin to see what you see, Leslie, when you are choosing people and the intention that you give them.
Great. We'll start looking at that. Thank you, Judith. And Patricia, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm Patricia. I'm in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. I had my first constellation experience about 15 years ago, have done at least 40 of my own constellations. It's been my primary healing mode. And I often tell people that constellations gave me my life. So I coordinate for people who come and lead here in the Twin Cities. But from the very first time I discovered constellations, I knew that I wanted to learn how to lead it. So it's been a really, really powerful modality for me, and something I'm sure I'll keep needing someone else to facilitate me for the rest of my life. But I love it. I just love the work and the benefits that I've gotten from it.
And what's one thing you want from this?
What I want from this is the information and the community to be able to step forward with the kind of support and information that I'm hoping that you're going to share.
Great. Thank you, Patricia. Yep. Elena, if you're trying to unmute, no? There you go. Now you're unmuted. Go for it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Elena. I I'm from Petaluma, California, so north of San Francisco. And then I studied under Michelle Masters through NLP Marin and took her, it's over 3 months, constellation facilitation course. During that time, I hosted study groups at my house. And then for the class that's happening now, I'm also just hosting the space for that. So I've been pretty engaged in constellation work for, I guess, about a year plus at this point. And what I'm hoping to get out of the class is I'm so inspired by the work and I love facilitating, I love representing, but I feel limited by the reliance on needing a group of people who are willing to give their time to come and represent. So I'm really excited to learn about ways to use the beautiful work that doesn't require a group of people.
Awesome. Thank you. And my unmuting thing isn't working very reliably. Let me try somebody else. Catherine and Lynn, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Hi, we're from Greenfield, Massachusetts, and I found out about constellations during my master's, did a couple of tabletops and was hooked, and did a couple of trainings with Judy Wilkins-Smith, and now we're doing Francesca Mason-Boring's 7-month training together. And I have had a full-time coaching practice, career business leadership coaching for the past almost 7 years. So I've been incorporating one-to-one constellations with my clients and felt really good and intuitive. But I want to learn a lot more, and I'll probably be primarily using constellations with individuals. So I'm wanting to learn more about how to support my clients.
Awesome. And Lynn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lincoln, and I have been introduced to constellation about, I would say, a year ago, right, in Marlborough College. And I'm taking this constellation training with Catherine together about 3 weekends now. I've done some like mini constellation several times, and been facilitator at the same time also as a representative to several times. I'm looking forward to gain more tools and knowledge, and I feel confident to do like one-on-one constellations.
Okay, great. And just to let you guys know, in a perfect world, you two would be joining from different screens. The reason being for practice later on.
We were thinking that we're actually at a 3-day constellations gathering in New Hampshire that a couple of friends are facilitating, and that's why we're in this bedroom together right now. But in the other times we'll do that. Will this
okay?
Now?
Well, I think we'll have to put you two together. And remember, you can always join on your phone. So if one of you has a smartphone, that's another option. But tonight you'll just have to practice together, I think. Yeah, if that isn't too weird or anything. Great, thank you. Tammy.
Hi, I'm Tammy. I'm from California, but I live in Chiang Mai, Thailand. I had done 2 West Coast intensives with Leslie. I did a 5-day workshop with Sarah Payton. And then I originally found constellations at a mindful center in Chiang Mai, Thailand, maybe like 7 years ago or so. So I've been on and off, I guess, more the past 7 years, but more really into it and understanding it the past 3 years. And what I'm hoping to get out of it is, so I'm also a wellness practitioner, and so finding a bit more about how I can use constellations for myself, as well as on one-on-one settings and situations. So I do TRE, energy work, and just trying to integrate that a bit more. And I'm also learning more about somatic experiencing. So just supporting what I already do.
Awesome. Thanks, Tammy. Rochelle.
Hello. Lovely to see all your faces, new friends. I'm Rochelle, and I live in Tauranga in New Zealand, or Tauranga. And I have trained here with Erin Lewis about nearly 2 years ago. Yep, nearly 2 years ago. 1 year, I don't know. It feels like forever. This work spoke to me 5 years ago when a friend of mine saw a workshop at a festival, and she came home and told me all about it, and something in me moved, and I knew that I had to find. She didn't even know what it was called, or whether you could train in it. So it was a little journey for me to discover it. And when I finally found that it had a name, it was almost 3 weeks or 2 weeks before the training in New Zealand
Your
started.
time's up. So what else would you like to share?
Wow, that went really fast.
Yeah.
So I just want to, I'm already facilitating. I just want to be able to learn how to do facilitation online.
Awesome.
And deepen
Thank
with
you.
the work. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see if I can get, no, I can't do that. Can't do that. Larry, you go.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Larry, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you bet.
Okay. So I'm from the United States. I've lived in New Zealand for 5 years. I first saw Constellations at Saybrook Graduate School, where I was getting my doctorate. I'm a psychologist with Dan Cohen, who some of you may have heard of. And I did the training with Erin Lewis, also finished about 1.5 years ago. So that was 4 whole weekends. I want to get better facility with the one-on-one aspect of you're both facilitating and then representing, or maybe the client then steps in and represents, and that to me is very different than in groups where you let the other people do the work. So, and more short techniques that I can include in the middle of a psychotherapy session.
Great. Thanks, Larry. Glad you're here. Good to see you again.
Yep.
Jonna, yeah, go ahead. You have control over your mute. I do not.
Okay. This is Jana from Bangalore, India. I am a regression therapist and inner child practitioner. I was introduced to family constellation about 5 years back. I've been learning from different people, and I use puppets for individual sessions. Now I'm looking forward to this training and a seminar to upgrade my skills for doing online sessions, because I keep traveling most of the time as such.
Great. Thank you. Serena, go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name's Serena. I live near Mount Rainier in Washington, in a little town. I have done some constellation training in the past with the intent to facilitate, but it never turned to facilitation training, but I've done quite a few and I quite enjoy it. It's been a lot of personal healing for me, so that's probably my primary is personal healing, but also like more understanding, learning to work with the field, and then learning how I can use this with my clients and taking it to the next step.
You have another minute. I mean, not a minute, but a couple of seconds.
Okay. Well, that's fine. That's fine.
Are you all set?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I love Mount Rainier. Amy, your name, where you're calling from tonight, your constellation background, and something you want from the class. You got a minute.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm calling from Los Altos, California, which is near Palo Alto. What can I say? I did my facilitator training with Mark Johnson in Seattle, and Kirsten Lazon. I don't know, people might know either or both of them. Let's see, I've also trained with Leslie now a few times. Not the basic facilitator training, but some of the advanced training. So, sorry, I'm trying to basically arrive here. I'm a little bit distracted.
That's all right.
So I'm just gonna say, because my 13-year-old son is here, which is great.
Hello, 13-year-old son.
Yeah.
Okay, we're glad you're here, Amy.
Thanks.
And Tanya.
Yes. So hi, my name is Tanya. I'm originally from Hong Kong, but now I also I live and work in Thailand. I'm actually in another city in Thailand now because I'm traveling. But anyway, so my only constellation experience was a workshop with Leslie last October. I didn't do any facility training, but I really enjoyed. It was really healing for me, and I did especially the exercise where we do like the conversation with the heart, the dialogue with the heart exercise. I've done that with some of my guests. I run a retreat center in Thailand, so and that was really, really helpful and insightful. So I really look forward to learning more on one-on-one constellation. That actually seems to be more, I resonate with one-on-one constellation at this moment more than group constellation. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome, good to have you. Cynthia and Ji Hyang, I also cannot unmute you, so whoever unmutes yourself first. I think Ji Hyang, you may be already accessible,
yes.
So go for it.
Yes, I'm Ji Hyang, and I've been doing constellation work. I did some training with Leslie, and it's also very congruent with the shamanic practice that I have. And what I'm hoping to get out of it really is a refresher, so I feel really more at home in doing the work. Thank you.
Awesome. Ji Hyang and Amy are our returnees. They've done the course before. Cynthia, yeah, if you can figure out how to, there you go, well done. Unfortunately, we're still not hearing you. You're unmuted, but we don't hear you. Is there two things? One, it might be muted on your keyboard. And then the second thing is if you have earbuds stuck into your jack, but you're not talking into your earbuds. Okay, I'm gonna have to invite you to troubleshoot a little bit. And if not, you can always call in with your phone to be able to talk to us, okay? And then we have one person on the phone. I'm gonna unmute you. Who's on the phone?
Hi, Leslie. It's me, Nazila.
Hi, Nazila.
Yes. So I'm calling from California, Berkeley, and I have been familiar with Constellation for the last 4 years. I've been going to Catherine for the last year, every month, monthly Constellation, and I've been taking a class from her. And I've met Leslie back maybe 3 or 4 months ago. So after she did the Constellation for me, it's my first official class in doing this work. And what I want from the class is basically to deepen my understanding of this magnificent work.
Excellent.
And I'm complete.
And Nazila, feel free. I mean, I saw that you had video before. Once you start practicing, it would be great to have your face. You can do both at the same time.
Yes.
So feel free to figure that out.
I'm planning on it. There is an issue. I will fix it. Hopefully, starting next week, I will be both on audio and video.
Okay, thanks. And Cynthia, give it a try. Do you feel like you have it fixed? You are unmuted, but we cannot hear you. My guess is you're muted on your keyboard. That's usually the simplest thing. And I can see you're also trying to call into your phone with the phone numbers that I sent in the email. So feel free to work on that. It'd be great to have your voice at some point when you figure it out. Okay, so we still need to hear from Cynthia when she figures out how to join us by audio, but I'm going to dive into some of what I need to talk about tonight. And there's going to be a little bit of kind of logistical setting, some foundational stuff. That is all in your email, Cynthia. The idea is in the email as well. It should be. And I can, during the break, I can look up, oh, there's the ID. Whoops. Here I will copy and paste it into the chat. 559. You might want to get a pen because it won't let me cut and paste it. So it's, are you listening, Cynthia, for the ID? Can you hear me, Cynthia? Can you thumbs up me, Cynthia, if you can hear me? Are you hearing the ID and writing it down? Okay, 559-867-1008. Okay, great, thank you. So, so the structure of the class each night is going to be about half lecture and half practice. So there's going to be a lot of practice together. And practice sessions are going to be in breakout groups, usually in pairs. More on that later. I'm going to be talking a bit about constellations generally. So for those of you who are newer to constellations, there's going to be some good foundational teaching. And for those of you who are kind of constellations experts, it's going to be some refreshers and maybe a different take on it, because everybody has a different take on some of this foundational material. And then, of course, lectures on the specific one-on-one practices that I'm going to be teaching. We're going to address a different practice each time. Tonight, it's going to be working with floor markers or footprints. People do that in different ways. But other times, we're going to talk about constellation meditations, working with figurines, constellations in the mind, a few other approaches. This is generally, as you can tell, going to be informal, ask questions as we go along. There will be a 5-minute bathroom break in the middle. And then just a few simple ground rules and agreements. Everything that you had in the email, thank you to those of you who wrote back to me and explicitly said you can, go with the agreement in the email. I have found that having that agreement is really important for classes like this because it's participative. But there's a few other things as well. The first thing I just want to say is this is a short instructional course. It is not an in-depth mentoring program where you're going to get much feedback on your growth over time. If you want more of that, you're invited to add the coaching sessions that I've mentioned in several of the emails. That would be customized in one-on-one. This is also not a comprehensive course. It's kind of a mini course. I will give you a good foundation in constellations, but if you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know everything that Leslie is talking about right now, that's part of the nature of this course. If you want comprehensive, then we can talk about that as well. So for some of you, because we're a group at a lot of different levels, some of you are going to find this too slow and some of you are going to find this too fast. Which means to me we're kind of in the right spot. The other thing I really want to make note of is that no one here is an expert. And when we receive each other's practice, it's not about getting perfect facilitating from someone else. Part of being a student in a group learning experience like this is to allow each other to be inelegant, to allow each other to be learners. Yeah, and even unknowing as we try these practices with each other. So as we practice together, this is really important. This is something we kind of have to have a contract about with each other, is that the students don't, without invitation, coach each other, okay? So I'm going to invite you, even if you know what would be helpful for them, just to hold back, stay in your student role. Now, if someone proactively asks you, please give me your feedback, by all means, give your feedback in a respectful and kind way. But if they don't give you that invitation, then just let them have their experience. It is always okay to tell someone they did a very fine piece of work. Feel free to do that. That's always nice. And because we are, we're going to be working with real stuff with each other. I make all these warnings, but the reality is you're going to get some amazing work from each other. I've seen it over and over and over, these really beautiful little pieces of work y'all do with each other. So we're being vulnerable and we're sharing real things that we get to work on. If for any reason you're experiencing distress, like it's landing in a way that doesn't feel good, bring that distress to me. Email me after the class, okay? Not so much to your fellow students, okay? So if you're having trouble with someone else in the class or with a practice that didn't land well for you, come to me about that. That's my job, okay? I have a few presuppositions about facilitating. Here's the first one. You ready? This one's gonna... Facilitating constellations is not hard. It's not hard. As Jan Jakob Stam said, he's one of my teachers, he said, you know, you set things up and something's gonna happen. The field makes stuff happen. Systems are alive. It's not that hard to get the basics and set things up that are in a low-key kind of way helpful for people. Yeah? Mastery is difficult. Right? It's a developmental process like anything else. It's kind of easy to do the basics, and I really hope you have that experience in this class. Over and over again, when I ask people for feedback at the end of the 5 weeks, the main thing people say is, oh, now I know I can do this. I feel confidence, and I really want that for you as well. But mastery is a place where you are starting to have something like muscle memory or unconscious knowledge, and it can take some time. It is important to put in the time facilitating, representing, and learning from a wide variety of teachers. To the degree that I think of myself as somewhere in the black belt zone of this work, it is because I have exposed myself to so many different constellation teachers who do such different things. And for those of you who have been exposed to different people, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? So what I'm going to do, that kind of introductory piece I'm not going to do in the next 4 classes. That was just for tonight. What I'm usually going to start a class with is some opening practice or meditation. So I want us to move into an opening meditation. And again, for your learning, pay attention to this. This is a constellation meditation. This is one way to do the work. It's not exactly one-on-one, although you can do it one-on-one. And we'll go into more depth on how to create constellation meditations another time. But there's a way to fashion them so that they're for a whole group. They're kind of like guided visualizations in a way. They have a lot in common with them. But the person can still have somewhat of a customized experience, even though you're saying the same thing to everybody. So take a moment, find a spot. Most people might like to close their eyes for a moment. And at some point, I'm going to invite you to name 2 or 3 first names of teachers, either in constellations or in other modalities. It doesn't really matter too much. 2 or 3. Please don't give me the whole list. Yeah? And when I invite you to do that, I'm going to invite you to unmute yourself and just say those 3 names. Joe, Bob, and Barbara, you know, whatever their names are, okay? So take a moment and just notice this group. Got about 10 to 12 people here. We have other people in the group who are not here tonight who will join us on other nights. We actually have 18 people signed up for the class. Just notice that field, the field of us. And you might imagine yourself, if you have your eyes closed, being in a space where all of us are there, because of course you are. We're in the land of non-local conscious phenomena, right? Just notice everybody. Notice the 19 people, including me. And notice your place amongst them. And in a moment, I'm going to invite you to invoke these lineages, to say those first names. And as you do that, I want you to say them with great deliberateness and reverence, and also listen in a similar spirit, so we can start to feel these teachers and lineages come present to us. And I'll start, and then after that, as you feel moved, unmute and share your 2 or 3 or 4. So I will begin. Donald, Francesca, Bert.
Linda Julie Debungsanim.
Please jump in.
Aaron, Beasley, Bert.
And as we hear these names, notice them appearing in the room that you're in, the space you're in.
Anna, Pam, and Doug. Michelle, Carl, and Tasha.
Nicholas, Dean, and Angela.
Francesca, Bill, Mano,
Aaron, Dan, Jill, and Tony.
Jamie, the other Jamie, and Barry.
Walter, Don, Larry, and Joe.
Jessica, Sarah, Leslie.
Maggie, Catherine, and Ardi.
Nicholas, Dean, and Angela.
Leslie, Katerina, and Margie.
Mark, Kirsten, and Leslie.
Yvonne, Amy, Bill.
Raj, Mark, Hans.
If you haven't gone yet, now's the time. So feel the presence of all those names, of all those people, of all that teaching, and feel the ones behind them, and the ones behind them, and the ones behind them. All behind the ones in this class. And then for those of you who are practitioners or hope to be practitioners someday, notice, bring into the space your clients, customers, patients, whatever you call them. And just allow all of those presences to find their right order. And how good the clients feel when the practitioners have their teachers with them. And how it strengthens us as a class to have our teachers with us. And just notice your place in it, not higher, not lower, in the right spot for you. And come on back. Thank you all. So I'm going to leap into the first sort of foundational review piece, and then after that we will have our short bathroom break. Okay? So I'm going to talk for a little bit here. I'm going to grab your screens. There we go. Okay. And if your little bit of video is in the way of anything, of seeing anything here, then you can actually move that little window of people. You can experiment with that. But what I want to start out by doing, this is a review. I'm going to go blindingly fast. But this is really important information, and it's really important for us to review it. Because we always, as facilitators, we always want the information I'm about to give to you, like at the ground of everything that we do. Like it's always right there, part of our muscle memory. And the first thing is what Bert Hellinger called the orders of love. And I just put in specifically for the family. What's been very made clear since Bert first started this work is that the orders of love vary a little bit from system to system. So it's a little bit different for organizations or for nature or for the physical body or, different kinds of systems. So what we tend to call the orders of love are specifically with respect to the family. If you want to work with those other systems, then you need to become familiar with those slight variations, which I'm not going to get into in this course. But feel free to email me about it if it intrigues you. But for the family, the other thing to say about this is there is no one definitive list of orders. For a man who thought systemically, Bert Hellinger was not systematic. It took some of his German students to come along and actually organize some of this stuff. So you will see different lists of the orders of love in different places. This is the core list that I work with. Mostly there's no priority, but there is one kind of at the top, which is honoring what is. Honoring and including what is, or as one teacher once put, respect for reality. I quite like that. It's basically the movement in constellations when we honor the fate of those who have died, yeah? Or we acknowledge a transgression or a perpetration. Or in families with family secrets or children who were adopted out and never spoken of, it's including the content of the secret or acknowledging the child who was adopted out and never spoken of again. This is, in some ways, the order of love that, in some ways, is an umbrella for all of the others. It's very powerful. The next one is belonging. And in families, the nice thing about belonging in families mostly is that it's simple. And I say mostly, but specifically for families, if you're born into a family, that's it. Done deal. You marry or get born, you belong. You can't get adopted out, suicide out, be written out of the will out, go off to World War II and die out. Estrangements and losses and exclusions happen in families all the time. And what this order of love tells us is that the family as a system considers that a gross insult and will go into dysfunction to assert the belonging again. That's why children end up identifying with their great-grandfather who was thrown out of the family for, embezzling the money or whatever happened. Yeah? Belonging is permanent. There are other ways in which people belong to each other. There's a long list of them. Murderers and murderers belong to each other. Combat buddies belong to each other. Combat veterans and their combat enemies belong to each other. Obviously, married couples belong to each other. Anyone, whether married or not, who have children together permanently belong to each other. There are other ways to belong, but understanding the importance of belonging helps you notice when you're doing a constellation what is excluded, what is missing, what is out of order, and that something is not belonging that ought to belong. Seniority and role is the next one, very, very important. Seniority, again, in families is mostly simple, which is birth order. So parents are senior to children. Older siblings are a little bit senior to younger siblings. Yeah, this is often becomes very important when our mother's brother died when he was a baby. And so there's kind of this feeling of the mother's brothers being permanently small. And then I turn to the client and I say hello to your uncle. And they look at me and they go, I've never thought of this one as my uncle. Yeah, the seniority was reestablished. And then the uncle says to the client, hello, niece, it's good to see you. Yeah. And then this is connected to role. The brother is the brother, the mother is the mother, the uncle is the uncle. This may seem really, really simple, but in what we call differentiation, getting clarity about position, one that's often is made a mess of in families is the second or third born child, and the previous children were adopted out, and so the third born child gets treated as the firstborn when they never were. When they can finally regain their third bornness, it tends to have a really powerful positive effect. Like, oh, something felt wrong the whole time. Or if the second marriage was a happy one and the first one was unhappy to the point of no one ever talking about it again, yeah, recovering the fact that the first marriage was a first marriage and the second marriage is a second marriage. It doesn't mean better or worse. Yeah? The people just can regain their proper place, and things can feel good again. The balance of giving and taking, very important in peer relationships, particularly when we're talking about couples relationships. This often shows up in organizational or in work contexts as well. It's very important between peers for there to be a balance of giving and taking. When someone's doing all the giving or someone's doing all the taking, then the system is out of balance. Yeah. And so the task of the facilitator is to help the system regain the balance of giving and taking. There is a very important sort of exception to this, which is in families, parents give and children take, period. The children don't owe the parents anything as a result of that taking that they did in order to survive, right? Parents can't write a bill to the kids when they're 18. Of course, sometimes this happens in massively dysfunctional families, or the sense of owing our parents something. Or even I have clients come to me saying, my job is to heal my ancestors. This is not uncommon talk in California. The way in which the balance of giving and taking is addressed in that is not giving back to the parents, but by giving to your own children or in some way to those who follow you if you don't have children yourself. Yeah? Now, this doesn't mean you don't help your parents. It's perfectly fine to help your parents. If someday your mother is in a nursing home and you're changing her diapers, yes, please, by all means do that. But there's a way in which you hold your mother senior to you as you are doing that. Because, it's all because how does life flow? It flows from the ancestors down to us and to the children. It cannot go in the other direction. It's just one of those things. Yeah? And so a lot of what we're addressing in constellations is children with very wounded parents who unconsciously are trying to heal the ones who came before. But as Bert Hellinger said, to be big in our lives, to be creative, to have work we love, to have partners we love, to have children, to do all the powerful things that belong to us as adults. To be big in our lives, we have to be small in our families. And this does not mean to be submissive. It doesn't mean to let our parents beat us up. It doesn't even mean to approve of our parents. It simply means to acknowledge where the life flows from. Yeah? And to be in good relationship with that. And then the last one is taking responsibility and addressing transgressions without revenge. Systems get really screwed up when there is a transgression or a violation upstream that never gets accounted for in some way. It's something I find with clients quite often. People are carrying around this vague sense of guilt, or they may even in life be getting a lot of feedback like, you're just not very nice, but they're a good person. They're trying to be nice, but they keep violating things somehow. And we find that there's a perpetrator upstream that never got that put in order. And in order to account for that generational perpetration, they're carrying the guilt. Yeah? And if we can give the guilt back to whom it belongs, then we can clear out this necessity and need to be a bad guy or to be a guilty one. By the way, for a lot of you white American folks and in other places in the world, a lot of this is connected to our slaveholding and Native American genocide history. We're carrying around a certain amount of ancestral guilt, and not in the sense of it's our fault. We actually want to give it back to them and acknowledge and honor, in a sense, what happened to our ancestors and what they did and the contexts that they lived in. And when we can honor and leave it with them, then we can move forward in power in our life generally, and in particular in terms of continuing to redress things like racism and injustice. Yeah, we can do it in a real clean way rather than in a really guilty way. Yeah. My second slide here is the second piece of really foundational material, belonging and conscience. This is a root contribution that Bert Hellinger made to the world. He's not the first one to notice some of the stuff, but it is a fundamental contribution, which is, just feel this in your body. We feel innocent when we adhere to the rules of belonging of whatever group, whether it's our soccer team or our family or our political group or our religious group. We feel innocent when we adhere to the rules of belonging. We feel guilty when we violate them. The old saying is, the child of thieves who steals does not feel guilty. Or vice versa, the child of thieves who does not steal does feel guilty. I just summed up the entire Godfather trilogy for you. Yeah, it's Michael's whole thing. Yeah. There are different layers of belonging and therefore conscience. Again, if your child belongs to the local soccer team and you belong to a church, and both of them require your participation on Sunday morning, yeah, you're going to be innocent with respect to one and guilty with respect to the other, because you're going to have to be in one place or the other that Sunday morning, right? There are different versions of this. Dan Cohen has a version of this. I think the Fausts have another version of this. But Bert Hellinger has a very particular one. It's in the beginning of the book, Love's Hidden Symmetry, which is his Bible. If you don't have it, go out and buy it. I'll tell you how to get it in a moment, so it won't cost an arm and a leg. But he had 3 levels. One was the personal conscience with respect to a specific person, like our mother, belonging to our mother. Yeah, I am depressed because my mother is depressed, and I would feel too guilty to be chipper in life. Yeah. Systemic conscience with respect to a group like our family or our culture. Yeah. My Holocaust survivor family is depressed, and I would feel too guilty to be chipper. Yeah. Or the conscience of the greater whole, humanity, or the cosmos. which is, if you ask yourself the question, then how does any child of thief ever stop stealing? Well, it's when our different belongings at different levels, both horizontally and vertically, these bullets, these squares are kind of horizontal belongings, come into tension and conflict. The soccer group and the church group. This is not actually a problem. It forces us to clarify our values. And very frequently, it is the clash of belongings that force growth, yeah? So we steal because we belong to children of thieves, yeah? But we also belong to humanity, yeah, which says that stealing isn't right. And those come into conflict. I mean, that's the first hour of The Godfather I just described to you, yeah? They come into conflict, and you make a decision. You clarify your values. And to the degree that we're able to keep evolving and growing and healing, it is being in a really conscious relationship with the tensions between layers. And this is very often what is going on in a constellation. The client's been caught in a very narrow space of loyalty with respect to their mother or their grandfather or a particular group of people, yeah? And we're bringing in another level of conscience that gives them an option to still have good conscience in a sense, yeah? But to be able to grow and heal and step into the next thing, yeah? This is one particular version of this is the Bert Hellinger healing sentences. When you turn to the ancestors and you say, I honor the dignity of your fate. Thank you for my life. Please bless me as I choose a different way. And the ancestors say, of course. Yeah? Then you're still in good relationship with the ancestors who have a value of growth and thriving for the descendants. Yeah? So we're belonging in a different way to our ancestors. Yeah? So these two areas, belonging and conscience, is an area in which it's diagnostic, in which we can see what the loyalties that the client or we ourselves in our own life, what loyalties are we managing in our guilt or our shame or our rage or our chronic illness, yeah? Whether literally or metaphorically. Sometimes it can be quite metaphorical, yeah? And in the orders of love, again, if we have these handy, as we're looking at a client's system in a constellation, we can ask ourselves, okay, this depression they have, or this anxiety, or this job search, or their problems with relationships, or their eating disorder, whatever they come to us for, yeah? Is it something isn't being honored? Is someone not belonging who's supposed to belong? Is something out of order with seniority or role? Is there an imbalance in giving and taking? Is there some violation that was never taken responsibility for? Yeah, it's actually a diagnostic tool. And the more you become familiar with these two frames, the orders of love and the belonging and conscience, yeah, it becomes a muscle memory. And you just start stepping into constellations, whether it's a group or it's one-on-one, and you don't even know how you know. So there was someone who said, I want to get a sense of how does Leslie do what she does, yeah? It started out with sort of tracking this stuff quite consciously, and then the more and more that I did it, it just became something I could see faster and faster. And that's the really masterful facilitators that you watch. They have this so internalized that they could kind of see the imbalances and dysfunctions and the out of orderedness, as Bert Hellinger would put it, pretty quickly, okay? So I'm going to stop the share. What I want to say to you about these things is that this is not a straitjacket, but when in doubt, assume the orders of love. Assume that they're functioning and that there's something out of order with them, okay? However, not in a bullying way. One of the things that new Constellation folk get a bit of a reputation for is saying the client is being too small with respect to their family, to their mom and their dad, and they must bow to their parents and become small to their parents, and that would correct the order of love with respect to seniority. No, never do that. Whenever you're trying to bring into order something that is clearly out of order, like a client being too big with respect to their parents, and there's any resistance to that coming into better order, it means something else hasn't been seen. Some other order has not been taken into account yet. Maybe it's a transgression, often the case, right? Because the person doesn't want to bow, they don't feel safe. They don't feel like their abuse or their loss or their pain has yet been really taken into account, for instance, yeah, or something else. And that's why there's this thing called field perception and staying in the moment, and it's a phenomenological approach, in that you want to follow the information you're getting in the field to know how to help the orders of love come into order. Now, I do understand in that lecture that I just gave, it was all sort of abstract theory. It really didn't talk about the hows, but I've squeezed it in a few places. The hows are going to come in a little bit more when we do some practice together. But I'm going to pause there and ask, before our break, any quick questions? Raise your hand or unmute yourself about all that. And I know for those of you who are like, you're really new to this, your head may be spinning a bit.
Hey, Leslie.
Yeah.
Lena here. I was just curious if you could repeat, because I know it's a common phrase, but I honor the dignity of your faith. And then you kind of went into, I ask for your blessing. There was like a 3-part of that.
Yeah, so these are different phrases of Bert Hellinger's, so this is one way to smush them together into a particular situation. I honor the dignity of your fate. Thank you for my life. Please bless me as I choose a different way. And then it's very important, the fourth bit, the ancestors say, of course. Whether that's, 10 of them or just dad. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Cynthia. Oh, I have to unmute you. Got it. Yes, go for it, Cynthia.
Thank you. Could you just say a little bit more about the balance of giving and taking? Is it just that it needs to be even more, not imbalance? Obviously, that would be a thing I'm confused about at times.
Yeah.
Right?
And the phone people, because you should have a mute button on your own phone. I'm going to invite you to use your own mute button on your own phone, and I'm going to do that for Nazila as well. Just then you have control over it for yourself rather than me. And Nazila, I just unmuted your audio. No, there you go. And you can mute your own phone and then unmute it yourself. Yeah, so this is most relevant in couples work. It could show up in like business partnerships and stuff like that. But basically, I mean, we're in the land of what we might call codependence. It's a different framework, yeah? But if we have someone who is always the injured one and is being taken care of by the healthy one, quote unquote, that's an imbalance in the giving and taking. This can get very tricky in couples where someone is a more significant wage earner than another. How do they make sure the balance of giving and taking? It's not like that can't be worked out, but it needs to be really conscious and figure out how is it being balanced in other areas of life. If one member of the marriage is extremely disabled, physically disabled and needs a lot of care, how are you making sure that the quote-unquote disabled person is having the dignity of an honest contribution to the relationship in some way? Yeah. If the balance of giving and taking is too far out of balance, after a while, funny stuff starts to happen. Crankiness arises, usually passive aggressive, or people get sick, Or people say, screw it, I'm out of here. They start having affairs. I mean, just, there are all kinds of different ways it can show up. Okay, that's a big topic. And I know I just saw you the other day. I recommend this book. I'm going to send you all my bibliography. But Bert Hellinger's Supporting Love, fabulous book on this topic. Really, really good, foundational. Other questions? Okay, so I'm sending you off on your 5-minute break. It is 6:36. You have to be back by 6:41. And we'll get started again.
Hi, Leslie. Can you hear me? Leslie? Leslie? Can you say something? I want to make sure if I can hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Awesome.
Oh, perfect. So the problem is fixed.
Excellent. Well done.
Thank you. I have a question. Are you going to send us the recording of this meeting later on?
Yes, everyone's getting the recording afterwards. Yep.
That would be a great
Part of
thing.
what you bought.
Yes, perfect.
I'm also
Thank
going to
you.
send the PDF, the slides.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For anyone who's within earshot, for the practice, and I put this into the email and part of the agreements, to always make sure you have blank cards or pieces of paper or stickies. So make sure you're going to need these. I use blank index cards that I cut in half. Got 1 minute if you're within my voice. Okay, we're going to get started. And I'm going to leap into a bit of a talk. I'm going to, again, do this at somewhat blistering speed. I apologize. On how to do constellations using cards or footprints. People use little colored squares on the ground. And once again, I'm going to grab your screen. Okay, so from my point of view, this is the simplest approach because it's most like group constellating. The markers function as holders for roles in between the times that you and or your client are representing, okay? What I do, and other people do, the nice thing about having a card or a sticky or something like that is that then you can write the name of what you're representing on it, and you can remember what each one is representing. But however you do it is fine. The nice thing also about using a card is you can turn it over, shuffle it with the other cards, and you can do blind format for the people who know blind format and want to do that. It can be done live or at a distance, or even I was just doing it the other day for myself on an event I'm planning, and I had some questions. It works really well if you're feeling solid in your own representing as a facilitator. Feel like you can move from role to role quickly. That's often the challenging thing for new facilitators, is they can't step in and out of things quite so quickly. And you can move from representing to facilitating without too much difficulty. That can often also be difficult for new facilitators. It is important to treat the markers on the ground. This is on the ground, so you're standing on them. And I'm going to demo this in a moment. It's important to treat the markers as people and go around them, walk around them rather than over them, okay? Just as if you had people in the room. You wouldn't walk through them, you would have to go around them, right? How do you work with the client in this approach? You do your usual interview. For those of you who are new, you may say, how do I do an interview? That's more of a lengthy course. It's not the body of this course, but I'm going to demo one in just a moment. Your usual interview on the issue in the family tree. Clients new to constellations sometimes need a lot of help feeling comfortable with it. You need to have a lot of rapport and safety. Slow down. Don't roll over their confusion or skepticism. Try to bring them along and respect their resistance. Resistance, by the way, is not my favorite word in the world, but it's in the psychological world. For me, client resistance is always, always, always about something still hasn't been included yet. Clients are not resistant just to be resistant. So if there's resistance, something hasn't been included yet. Now, the question is, with this approach, is whether you or the client or both of you do the representing. And that is up to you. What I do is I do most of the representing most of the time. And my experience is that the clients watch, and I'm checking in with them a lot. I'm making sure I'm not leaving them behind. I'm asking them how they're doing. Is it connecting? Is it landing for them? More anxious, less anxious, all that sort of stuff. I'm tracking their rapport with the process. And as long as I'm doing that, and then they tend to feel the field and feel what is going on in a way that feels pretty good to them. In the same way that a client in a group constellation, feels good about watching the activity out there in the room. Like it's about them, but they have a little bit of distance, yeah? And if I notice and I can tell I'm leaving them behind, then I sit down and I talk with them a little bit, right? I get back in rapport. I find out what's off, what's not working. Yeah, but that's the same for a group constellation, right? So things to notice: are they picking it up? Are they feeling the constellation as you represent? Who might it be helpful for them to feel or not feel? For instance, would it be really useful to step into their crazy mother, or would it be a really bad idea for them to step into their crazy mother. It depending on where they are in their growth, it can be one or the other. Yeah. Usually you invite the client into their role toward the end if they haven't represented yet, just like a group constellation. Yeah. By the way, you're going to be getting all these slides afterwards. What are the criteria for choosing roles? The main one is you want to keep, applies to all one-on-one constellations. You tend to want to keep them a little simpler if you can. Yeah, because you don't have all these people in the group. Otherwise, just follow the issue in the interview as usual. You need to be very clear with yourself and the client when you are talking in a role. So this happens to me all the time. So I'm reporting out as mom, and then I'm kind of Leslie, observing mom or observing the constellation. I need to be really clear when I'm in a role and when I'm facilitating. That can get mucky really fast. So have really good hygiene about this. It's pretty important. And then other items can get recruited, which is kind of cool. I have an old Mexican Lady of Guadalupe on my wall in my office, and it's constantly becoming an object in constellations, particularly when there's some need for the divine feminine in the constellation. So that's pretty cool. Notice when as facilitator, you're starting to fall into a role. That's just sort of common facilitator hygiene as well. The criteria for deciding on this approach, it really is the most similar to group constellation work, and for many newer facilitators, it's a natural next step. You really like physically moving and being in your body. You have space to do it in. You really don't need much room, but you do need a little bit of room, some floor space. The client is adequately able to deal with a little tinge of woo-woo about it. And sometimes you do it because the client is familiar with group constellations and wants something kind of like that. Okay? So overall, the main thing is I want you to try all of these approaches over the course of the 5 weeks, and you're going to find 1 or 2 or 3 of them really amenable to you and how you work. And 1 or 2 or 3 are not, you're just going to like, that's not my thing. Like figurines are not my thing. I've met plenty of people for whom figurines, table work is like the bee's knees. And that's fine. Yeah. As for all one-on-one approaches, you can do this on Zoom or even on the telephone. It can get a little tricky on the phone. Like, do you have to set up north, south, east, and west? So you can tell, you know, if you don't have a visual aid, this is a little tricky, but you can do it. Like sometimes you set up a clock. At 10 o'clock, mom is standing next to dad, you know, that sort of thing. And I see a question I'll get to in 1 second. All normal constellation other practices are relevant, okay? Noticing the violations of the orders of love, inversions, improper placings, resolve tension, feeling things come into right order, etc. All the same. The person who had the question, go ahead and unmute yourself and just ask the question. In fact, I'm going to stop the share for a moment. Who's the person who had the question? Or chat or something? Oh, Elena just said she's leaving for 5 minutes now. That's all. No question. Okay. So what I want to do for 5 or 10 minutes is demo with somebody and just show how I do it. So who has an issue? Simple, not too complex. I can't organize my desk. I'm really nervous about an upcoming job interview. I'm having a conflict with my roommate. Something you can state in a really simple way, please. Who has something? Okay, Judith, raising her hand. Unmute yourself, Judith.
I'm having trouble throwing things away.
Okay.
Getting rid of things that are nice, but they need to go.
Okay. So what I'm going to demo right now for everybody is an extremely abbreviated interview. When I work with clients in my large groups context, I actually get on the phone ahead of time. I might interview them for 30 minutes on their family tree. Obviously not going to do that here. If you're doing a day-long workshop and you just need to interview someone in just a couple of minutes, you've got to get good at going fast. But basically, when you're working with each other in these pairs that I'm going to put you into, is that you need to get, some key information quickly and then just dive in. And just accept you're not going to know everything that may potentially be relevant, right? Okay. So, Judith, let me just ask the obvious question. In your background, is there any spectacular, like, Holocaust, where everything got lost?
Probably with the immigration, although I'm third generation born in America.
Who are your people?
My people are Eastern European Jews.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so, I mean, it's in there somewhere. And also possibly one great grandmother who's Mongolian. And also,
that's fun.
Also
okay,
Jewish.
Okay. And then, and I'm going to ask you for like the obvious answers to questions because we're not going to drill into details today. Did your mother or father have this problem? In an obvious way.
Yeah, my mother had more than she needed.
Okay. And just take a moment, step into the experience of trying to get rid of something and not being able to. Just close your eyes and feel it. Just revisit the most recent time where it was difficult. And give me one word for how that feels.
Arrested. I feel arrested.
What do you mean by the word arrested, just in one or two words?
Stopped. Can't quite
so
breathe.
Something outside of you is doing it.
Yeah, I just...
That's interesting.
And overwhelmed.
Okay, thank you. So it's very interesting. If I had a half hour with her, I'm now really interested if someone was ever arrested or should have been arrested. Constellations can sometimes, our inner meanings can sometimes be that literal in the words, but I'm not going to go there because, but just to let you know where I might have gone. But what is interesting about her answer is that it feels like an external force. And making note of that. Like it feels like something outside of her is stopping her. 10 people with problems getting rid of stuff would have described that in different ways. One person would have said, I feel guilty. Another person would have said, it terrifies me. Another person would have said, yeah, but she said arrested. Okay? And these are the little hints you're looking for. To like, what is her pattern? What is her system up to? Okay. So I'm going to unplug my earbuds. My earbuds don't stretch that far. Everyone here okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm going to do this super simple for you. So that's as much of an interview I want you to do with each other. What I just did, that's enough. Mm-hmm. Okay? By the way, is it a specific subset of things, or could it almost be anything?
Yeah, it could be almost anything.
Okay.
It's easier with clothes than it is with pieces of art.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm
doodads.
going to start out with two cards. Mm-hmm. Judith and things. Yeah?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, at its most, if I hadn't asked any additional questions, that is our system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Judith and things. So I'm going to step into them and I'm going to report out. And Well, I will do it the way I normally do it. I'm going to take Judith in my hand. I'm going to find a place here. This is when I work with clients on Zoom. This is exactly what I do. Okay. This is where Judith wants to be. It's quite nice to be Judith, but there is kind of a fear flutter right here. Oh, now it's up here, like ooh, that's interesting because it's changing a little bit. Now I got a real thing of grief. But it's almost like I'm looking at it from a distance because I'm not inclined to cry. But there's a grief energy somewhere. And I notice myself doing listening physiology, like I'm listening for something. I think I'm checking out for it's a little bit of being on alert.
Hypervigilant.
I would call it vigilance. I'm not sure it's quite hyper.
Okay. Used to be hyper.
Yeah, I believe you. It makes sense to me in this representation. I mean, in here, like I said, it's kind of nice to be Judith. So I'm having to go a little in to find these threads. Okay, and then things. I'm going to bring in things. I'm going to find my spot. It's interesting. I'm taking Father's spot, which is right behind Judith's right shoulder. She mentioned her mother, and that had resonance when she spoke about her mother, that her behavior was a little bit like her mother's. But I'm in Father's spot. For those of you who are new, generally speaking in constellations, Father's behind our right shoulder and Mother's behind our left shoulder. Okay? So I'm behind Judith's right shoulder. I feel a little supportive. I mean, Father kind of fits. It feels a bit fatherly. You didn't lose your father early, did you, Judith?
No.
Was your father there but not there?
He was quite a bully, somewhat sadistic.
Did your father lose his father?
Yes, younger than he wanted. He really felt betrayed when his father died, but my father was already in his 40s, I'm sure.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, not young.
Feel supportive. So what I'm doing, I'm taking in that information about sadistic and a bully, and I'm checking it with this experience, because I don't want to run ramshot over that information. That's really important information. It's very tender, right? I don't want to just represent Father as this nice guy in the face of that information. And I don't actually know if this is Father, but I'm working on a theory here that it is. So I'm just going to see how this feels to Judith, to have things behind me. It's really interesting. I feel things behind me, and it feels good. I like it. But more than I can remember in this kind of a role, it makes me feel the absence in the other spot very strongly. And the imbalance of not having that filled. So I almost have more attention on the absence than on the presence. You did a big sigh there.
Yeah.
What did you recognize?
There was not much parenting.
Not much parenting.
There was minus parenting.
Minus parenting. So what I'm going to do is just a kind of simple move here because I want to keep this short.
Mm-hmm.
Is I'm just going to bring mother and father in, not to work with them,
Mm-hmm.
but in order to let things go back and be things.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's just a simple move, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If something, like if money is showing up as dad or the job is showing up as mom, then bring the mom in so the job can go back to being a job,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's slowly disentangling things. I'm just gonna put, and I'm gonna keep them a little bit, they're behind Judith. I put them behind Judith, but a little bit away, because Judith is communicating to me that the parents don't feel super safe to her. So I'm going to just keep them, just give Judith a little distance. And now I'm going to be things, and I can go back to being things. And now all of a sudden I feel awesome. I'm things. Things are great. I feel very joyful to be Judith's things. I think Judith likes us. We're glad to be in service to Judith. Let's go play. I feel great now. So I'm gonna put things here and see how Judith feels about that separation, separating things out a little bit. I mean, that's one thing we do in the honoring what is. It's, as I talked a lot about this in New Zealand. In psychology, they call it differentiation. Yeah? It's letting things be themselves rather than this mush that happens in trauma, and everything gets all confused. So Judith, okay, momentary instability. Okay, so as Judith, I'm getting a really big aha.
Mm-hmm.
And the sentence is, dear things, because I have not been able to be close to my parents and have the support from them that I longed for, I've asked you to be my parents. And for you to support and care for me. And when you do that, it would be rude for me to get rid of you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being willing to be part of that confusion. And for me, that sort of the update right now is just kind of turning around and going, mother, father, at some distance, a little bit distance, but mother, father, things. Mother, father, things. Things. Mother, father. So my invitation to you, given this little tiny constellation, yeah, I would say spend a little bit more time letting things parent you, and don't worry about getting rid of things for a little bit until you work on this stuff.
Yeah, the things were what we were given instead of love.
Yeah. So thank you, things. I just feel grateful to things for.
Thank you, things.
For being willing to do that. And I wouldn't push into identifying this or giving them a new role too fast. Deal with the parents, and then we'll see if anything changes with your relationship with things.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's not uncommon, like families where you got food instead of love, or, right? Yeah. Good enough for now, Judith?
Good enough for now. Thank you very much.
Fast demo. Quick questions before I send you all into pairs. And please, I did that so that you could see how it could work. Don't be sitting there going, I can't do it, Leslie just did. All I want you to do is, share a quick issue and choose a couple of roles and start stepping in and see what happens. For real. Remember, inelegant, messy, we're all learners here, okay? So yeah, questions, Elena.
Unless I missed it, but can you speak to using constellations like just diagnostically or any like, yes, ethical inquiry ethics, if there are any?
I don't understand the question of inquiry ethics. I'm sorry.
Like it's okay to just kind of step in and like see what's going on, and maybe you're leaving it there, but you're just looking for information essentially.
Yeah, sure. And in the time that, Judith, I didn't do a big resolution with her, but I suspect there's something useful going on in her system right now around that insight and that clarity and being given a break around having to get rid of stuff. Yeah. Obviously, you always need permission. Know your authority and your boundaries. It's not my place to go do a constellation for my next door neighbor, just because I'm curious about what's going on in their life. Even in my own ancestral life, Bert Hellinger was very big on having an issue of weight that had weight. Yeah? If someone came with something that didn't have sufficient weight, Bert Hellinger would be, off with you, go from the stage, right? So Judith had an issue with some weight. But we could look at that issue with weight without any intention to get to a resolution. Mm-hmm. That's certainly possible. So yes, inquiries in that sense as just a structure or format is just fine. The usual rules apply to having a question that is a proper one for the client to explore or for you to explore. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Other quick questions, because I want to make sure you have as much time, Tammy, to do the practice as possible.
Okay. So with group constellations, then, chairs are in a circle and the field is kind of held within that. And so with this example that you did, that you just really like stepped right into it. So is there a need to sort of kind of be like, all right, just in this room, or kind of to mark your space of where you're using?
There is no necessity. A lot of this stuff is preference. So a lot of you will prefer doing a 10-minute drumming ritual before you start a constellation, or smudge the room, or pray to the ancestors first. Similarly with ending rituals. I am someone who can step in and out of the field really fast in a way that a lot of people who have been trained in tighter boundaried constellations can find a little like, whoa, we just stepped right into that. It is always important, and this is a whole weekend's work in my basic training, how to create a container, having a clear beginning, a clear end, staying in touch. You saw I stayed in touch with Judith the whole time. I was checking in along the way. I didn't leave her behind. She said some pointed things, like about her dad was a bully and sadistic, and I didn't just like pretend I didn't hear that. It's weighty information, right? And there's a way in which my confidence with the work does create a little bit of a sense of, once I start, I'm starting. But what a lot of new people to the work, they want to take a second, like, okay, now I've interviewed Judith. Okay, I'm going to sit with you and your ancestors for a second and do that for a minute. And then they'll set up a couple of cards. Yeah? So a lot of that stuff is preference. And I encourage every single person to do this in a way that strengthens you. Now, before I got on the call, I connected with my ancestors. I connected with all of you. I've got a candle going right here behind me. So I did some things to make sure that this container was going to be good. Ready to go into groups?
Sure.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So what I'm going to do, Catherine and Lynn, is I'm going to put you with a third person. Okay? That means y'all have an extra person to help represent if you want. And I've gone a little long before I've sent you into practice. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to have one round. So only one person is going to practice. The other person will receive a constellation, and then we'll have a chance for everybody else to do it next week. Okay. I will make a note of how the partnerships go because we need enough time to do it. So I'm going to put you into pairs. Let me show you the rules again here. So pairs, it's going to be 30 minutes, just one constellation. These are mini constellations. Please don't count on full resolutions. The client will present an issue and propose 2 to 4 elements, and the facilitator can recommend more. Please keep the issue simple. Thank you, Judith. You were perfect in that regard. Here's Leslie's firm rule, really important. The facilitator is the facilitator and the client is the client. Stay in your lanes if you can. It's really important. I'm going to visit the groups to see how you are doing. Give you a heads up on time, and I'm not going to tell you when to switch, but I will give you a heads up on time. If you can, don't lose track of time, but don't worry about it too much. And there is a place on your menu bar to ask for help, and I will come to you proactively. Before Zoom will magically pair you up with people, I have to make sure that Cynthia's phone goes with Cynthia, so I may have to do a little bit of futzing with it. You feel like you have sound now, Cynthia?
I'm hearing you, and I think you're hearing me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so hang up your phone, and then we won't get feedback.
Hang it up?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Can speak. Cynthia, speak.
Okay.
Good, excellent. We can hear you now. Excellent. Okay. Okay, I'm going to send you into breakout rooms. Give me 1 second.
So Judith, are you and I unmuted?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool.
Are we in a room together?
No, all of you, I haven't
Again?
put anyone in any rooms yet.
Get a room, Cynthia.
Yeah, right, get a room.
Had it with you.
Okay, that should do it. So now you'll have a pop-up screen, just join the rooms.
Okay.
quick. I am quick. When I was younger, I was basically my walk. I was walking very fast, as if that I was jumping. Now I'm much older. I cannot walk that fast, but still I am fast. I mean, my things happens in my mind very fast, and I make quick decisions. Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'll get distracted by reading news on the internet or, you know, doing email or stuff like that. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. There are all these things that I want to do and that sometimes I do them. They're not hard, but it's like I get in my own way, or I don't do the things that are actually priorities for me.
Okay, so
anyone in your family?
I've been relatively successful in my practice, and I have a success.
Hey, Leslie. Cynthia is back without audio.
So, Cynthia, call back in. I can't hear you to answer you, Cynthia. I'll go back to the main. So you need the ID? I mean, I'll get you into the room with the phone. Don't worry about it, but call in. (559) 867 1008. Can you give me a thumbs up when you think you're in the call? Okay, I need to leave and I'll come back.
Hearing me now?
We're in.
Okay, now? And now?
And maybe just mute your Skype. Maybe mute your Zoom.
Go ahead and mute your computer, Cynthia, for just in case.
I do that. I don't hear you guys. Talk to me now.
Then mute your phone. Don't turn it off. Just mute your phone. Okay, then turn the phone on.
If I mute the computer, I don't hear you.
Mute your computer.
Get that.
Literally on your keyboard.
Mute your microphone, right?
I muted on the keyboard, but you're saying mute on the microphone instead?
Yeah, so on your keyboard, there's an on-off switch for volume. Turn it off. Okay, that should do it. You should be okay. Now you're gonna probably have to put your voice a little closer to the phone. You know, I mean, talk like this or put earbuds in or something.
Yeah. Okay, now I think it should roll into my ear pod pretty soon here. Takes a minute.
It sounds
Leslie,
good.
Good job. Okay, Got it.
Okay, off with the.
Thank you.
Elena, thank you for your patience.
Of course.
Just step out of my role for a moment. So can you tell me a bit in terms of, I'm going to borrow Leslie's example, imagining that you're in the situation of trying to make effort to do your taxes, or whether it's like creating the space or just the moment before you get distracted, just the moment maybe before you get a little bit overwhelmed, and maybe describe a little bit more of your sensations.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first thing I noticed is that I was led to put them far away from each other. So I have this bit of space. We're looking at each other, but the money is all the way on one edge.
Yeah.
At the door, and you are all the way on the other edge.
Okay.
And then I'm going to just feel into.
And it has a kind of higher order. Feels like, I think the question that is coming to mind for me is what, what is, what's really being, valued here. When I step into this role, it feels like something wants to be, there's something that needs to be proactively valued.
Yeah.
Yeah, like avoidance, perhaps?
Avoidance.
Yeah. Yeah, anxiety.
Yeah.
And being in this, I want to, yeah, comfort. There's some comfort here.
By eating fast, that brings
Yeah,
me comfort.
there's a little bit of comfort in that as well. Like, this is what I can do. Like power. This is my power. This is what I have. Okay, so now I'm going to step back into.
What's needed here? The sense that I have is that of knowing that something's needed, but not knowing how to get to self-care. Like there's just this kind of stuckness. Little by little, Amy's moving. As Amy, I'm moving. But boy, it's like really difficult because I'm keeping my eye.
I think you want to be just directly behind the new program, but with a little, oh, no, maybe not so much distance. Okay. Okay. Anything about those two so far? Actually,
I'm all ears. I'm with you.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna be the new program for a minute.
Okay.
I'm feeling kind of tingly. My fingers are tingling a little. And I feel young. I feel young and a little tingly. I'm anticipating, and I'm unsure, but I'm not unsure in a way where I'm afraid. Just feel young. Oops, here, I can see me more. I feel young, and the tingling.
And I can see your snake plant that I'm envious of. It is growing beautifully.
It's very happy there.
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking at mine.
Yeah.
Less happy.
Maybe they should talk.
They should.
So I've got my.
Buddy, go do some talking. Okay.
Okay. So I've got Elena here, and so let's put her pretty much in the middle.
You can also feel out where she's best. Oh, I'm not supposed to say anything. Sorry. That's going to be really hard for me.
What'd you say?
Nothing.
In the middle is hard? Okay.
No, I just said, like, you can find her space. And then I'm like, no, Elena, you're not facilitating. So I'm done.
Okay. All right. I'm stepping out of Elena, and I'm picking up money. And money's back here at an angle. Oh, but you know what? Well, I didn't do it. I wish I had stayed on Elena a little moment, but since I'm with money right now, I'm going to go ahead and land in money and just see what's happening there. Okay?
Yeah.
So I have this feeling of I'm leaning backwards away a little bit. I have my eyes closed and my face is as if to be averted. Does that make sense? I'm back.
Do you feel that in your life growing up or with your parents and such, then this is also something that you notice where perhaps they did not have time for you, or they were busy doing other tasks, or also feel that they were a little bit maybe overwhelmed at times with there's a lot happening in their lives?
No, I had a pretty magical childhood. I'm one of the very few.
Wow.
Yeah. The only thing I could relate it to with my parents, though, would be that in starting with my parents and every other authority figure in my life, I have rebelled against just for shits and giggles. Like I have no concept of authority. Like nothing has sovereignty over me, and it's
the message you absorbed, then I'm going to stand where you are.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that's what you're seeing. You're looking at your mother, and both of you are thinking, if money causes this much grief and conflict, better not to have it. And so, does that resonate with you?
I feel like it's more like a kind of guilt that it's as you did like as you're laying out, like there was a sense of like guilt. I guess for me, like
Father needs to be disentangled. Yeah, at the simplest level, stepping in as Jana. I say to Jana's father, your I leave your relationship with money to you. Bless me as I choose a different way.
And when I'm standing here, it's like, yep, that's all true. That's what I've got. And here I am. So it's almost this like, I can't do anything about it feeling.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, it's just makes me fluttery. It's very interesting because in the same way where I was like, stay calm, it's going to be okay. The same exact place. It's right from my throat to my belly. Just is quite fluttery when I think about my relationship to the fear of humiliation. How?
Yeah. Definitely with you and with Mom. So I've got my cards. I'm gonna make them up. So And you mentioned other things, but one of the things you said was you would like to have a facilitation practice. Did I hear that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think we'll start with those three things: Patricia and Patricia's mom, and facilitation practice. Oh, or maybe it's something more general. It's
Sammy, I just want to check in. You guys are going to try and do one in 7 minutes?
Oh, yes.
That's fine.
Yep.
The other one just resolved, and so.
Go for it.
Okay. Oh, are you listening in? Let's see, I've lost Patricia now, so let me do the whole.
There's such a relief in money to be here right next to comfort. Money wants to be like right next to comfort, right next to comfort. Oh, money feels like so relieved to be with comfort. And I want to see what's happening in comfort right next door here. There's a leaning together. These two just feel like, like kind of merged and relieved, just relieved. Such a big feeling of relief over here. But we don't know we are far away from Elena. Leslie, can you say anything into here?
Not out of context, sorry. I haven't seen the preceding context, so I'll just have to let you carry on.
You're doing beautifully, Cynthia. Keep rolling.
These two are far away, and they're very good with each other. And we don't know what the journey, how to link, we don't know how we come in relationship together. So there's some other element, it seems like. I'm going to go back.
He was very successful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll put him down because he left it to her and all his children, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put him down, and this way it flows all the way down.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm writing him down.
Yeah, that's great.
So, okay. I'm wondering if I step back in.
Goodness is somewhere there. I think it's 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes.
To see about if any of that's linked.
I'm going to offer the support of equilateral relationships.
Well, I have the feeling yes?
Go ahead.
I have 5 minutes. Okay, I have 5 minutes. Let me look at my clock so I can see 5 minutes.
Finally. I'm going to step over to the other one.
Okay.
This is
Say that again, please.
I was asking if you felt like that had changed 5 minutes.
That what has changed since then?
Hello.
Just want to be not a big deal. Huh.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. And
Oh, that was hard.
Cynthia, I'm just going to invite you to
Yes.
mute your own phone because we got a funny little.
Make my own what?
Mute your phone. Got a funny little noise. So, hi. So you survived your first practice. Yay! So I would just like a minute or two of shares. I know somebody, raise your hand if you were the person who needed to leave a little early. No, Tammy, a little bit early because she's got another thing. So she'll suddenly disappear. Some shares, miracle cures, questions. What did you learn and notice? What amazing experience did you have? What was tricky and stuck? Let's do a little group learning together. Just go ahead and unmute yourself. And Nazila is sideways, but that's okay.
I'll share.
Yay, thank you, Nazila.
I was the facilitator for Rochelle. Yeah, it was, I modeled a lot, or I used a lot from Leslie's modeling, and definitely got stuck in terms of, all right, how do I bring, something, Rochelle, is it okay to share about your issue? How to bring something like taxes, into like, okay, I'm sure it's going to be connected to the family somewhere. So I felt like I couldn't make the connections. But then as we started to talk and engage, then yeah, it got more and more clear. And Rochelle, I would say, helped a lot. And whether it was just like her own musings or a natural way of how things unfolded, then yeah, I was trying to look for those hints and try to use it. So
yeah,
but I felt like without Rochelle offering her musings and such, then I would have still been a bit stuck.
So 2 things I want to take from that. Number 1, listen to your client. There's, it's not like you're supposed to figure this all out without talking to them. Right? It's an interchange. It's a connection. They're getting insights. Obviously, the clients can also, hello, little one. Clients can also be deep in misunderstandings about things. They can tell you how things are, and you're like, oh, probably not. But you're still in a dialogue, and sometimes they genuinely do have massive insights that help you take the next step. So that's one thing. Number 2, congratulations also for having that moment of, I don't know what's going on, because that is a required step of all constellations. And if you didn't have it, you skipped the I don't know what's going on step. There's always a moment in constellations where we're just like, I don't know what the thing is here. And the nice thing, if we can get more and more in good relationship with that moment, we can kind of sit and slow down and observe. Then that's when the field can arise something new. And it's not just our agenda or the client's agenda. It's genuinely the wisdom of the system revealing itself. And that's the real magic of family constellations. So congratulations on 2 parts there. Questions, miracle cures, anything else about the experience? What was that like?
I just love how powerful this work is. And I love what you said earlier about, the constellations aren't hard, just set something up and the field will make something happen. So I'm just laughing because, so I was working with Patricia, And you know, we were kind of like, okay, let's just do this. And so she we actually ended up both having
yes, we had the advanced students over there doing 2 constellations.
Well, we didn't know that was going to happen, but it's just the first one just Patricia facilitated first, and it just resolved, you know, or came to a good stopping point pretty quickly. But it's just amazing to me. So the second one, like you popped in, Leslie, and you're like, let me get this straight. You're going to do a constellation in 7 minutes. But so it was kind of like, oh, okay, do this, that, and you know, somehow it worked out. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just kind of tickled. It's
awesome.
Kind of something about just like letting go of it, and cool things happen.
Some of the most powerful constellations I've received over the years have been quick 10-minute ones, as opposed to the hour-and-a-half ones where all the dead of World War II are on the floor. There's something about the simplicity and reducing things to simplest elements that can be quite powerful and revealing. And the other form is great too, but yes, it can be lovely.
It wasn't elegant, but it worked anyway.
There's that. Questions, places where you got stuck. Yeah, Catherine.
It's not a question, but I just want to say that I have an understanding now of hidden loyalties in a way that I didn't, because I was like, no, doesn't have to do with my mom. Don't put her in, that's too complicated. And then as soon as she was placed, I went from feeling fear to feeling calm, which our representative was really encouraging me to feel. So, or encouraging herself to feel. Anyway, I did not expect that. Hidden loyalties, like surprise. So,
and it was a work-related thing, right? You don't need to reveal, but it was a work-related thing.
Yeah, it was work-related. Yeah, and I was like, there's successful entrepreneurs in my background, and her thing doesn't really me, but.
So I can't tell you how often that happens. Just to generalize from that, even when we're bringing in the world's worst perpetrator, if it's been excluded or not really understood that it has a role, when we bring it in, the system relaxes. And that's the first order of love, the honoring what is, right? It's, we just brought in Hitler. Finally, we can all relax. It's a weird thing to say, but, and so if a parent is playing a critical role in terms of a difficulty we're having as an adult in our workplace, again, even if we had a problematic relationship with that parent, bringing it in when we're looking at the issue will let us finally go, oh, okay, so mom's relevant.
Yeah.
Rats, but okay. So thank you. And I often find with clients working on small business stuff, trying to get their businesses going, how often it is an ongoing issue with mom or dad. We were raised by them.
Yeah.
There's not much we can do about it. They're important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments or shares?
This is Patricia. I was really moved by how I'm sitting in this spare bedroom and could feel the palpability of the field. How, it was really fascinating to feel how this was all happening within that field.
Yeah. And several of you are on opposite sides of the planet working together. And the field, the non-local consciousness thing is just not a problem. Now, we did lose Ivana early on, and I assume she's in Europe, and she's at like 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. right now. That's really rough. So there are issues with time zones, obviously. But in terms of the field, not one of them. Yeah, that's cool.
I have a comment about appreciated the simplicity. I've seen the 3-hour ones,
right?
And I thought, well, I'm just going to remove this uncle from the picture, even though he was part of conflict, and just pare it down to client, mother. That's it. And I could have, if I knew that I had an hour and a half, 3 hours, representatives, whatever, I could have sort of done the work for the conflict and everything with all those people that were in it. But I don't think I would have gotten to any different end than I did by paring it down to just a couple of, just the one or two people.
Yeah. So I want to thank you all for diving in and being vulnerable with each other and giving each other real issues to work with. I saw that. And just letting your facilitators be facilitators and letting your clients be clients. And it's amazing, like what you did. I saw some really cool things happening. Yeah. And if you didn't have a totally cool thing happening, then learning occurred, which is a totally cool thing. So you do have homework. You get homework in this class. No grades. But basically, I want you to do this. I want you to do this with yourself or somebody else in the next week. Find a friend, a coworker. You can do it for yourself if you want to. I think the learning will be a little bit more vulnerable and deep if you can find somebody who will let you do it with them. If you see clients, you can do this as like if you're working with a client in a psychotherapy session or a coaching session and they're dealing with finances or a work situation, obviously you may have professional boundaries that make this sort of thing not workable. But if you do, you can even just look at the client and money for a second, or the client in that project. You don't even have to do a full constellation. Yeah. And then you can go sit down and continue with your coaching modality or your psychotherapy modality. Yeah. Larry is saying he's going to be absent next week. I know we have a big class here. There's going to be some people missing. So please practice next week. You're going to get the recording. You're going to get the slides of the PDF. And then we'll dive in again next week. And what's the question? Please let me know I can view the recording before 2 weeks. You will get it. I send it out within 24 hours. Okay. And then you can practice if you ever miss a class, watch the video and you can take part in the homework during that week, having watched the video. You do need to set aside 2.5 hours to do that, but hopefully you can do that. And just notice what's tricky, what's easy, and then we will give a chance for everyone who didn't have a chance to do this next week, as well as a new practice. So tonight we talked about the orders of love, about conscience and belonging, and we talked about doing this work with floor markers. So just take a moment. I would like to hear 3 or 4 takeaways for this class. Perhaps from someone we haven't heard much from. What's a takeaway? What's something that you're going to leave chewing on or grateful for or just struck you somehow? And you can just unmute yourself and share.
My biggest takeaway is the idea of to be simple. Simplicity. That's what I want to practice more on.
Excellent. I'm glad for that. Thank you.
I can share one.
Please.
Even though you've heard from me. But I was totally shocked that in 20 minutes, because we had probably Mercury retrograde technical issues, that the work could go so deep so fast when both parties are willing to be just super vulnerable or whatever container made that possible. I've never seen something go so deep so quickly. And that was amazing and very inspiring.
It's lovely, isn't it? It's a little terrifying, but it's lovely.
That too.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, that's a vibration that clients have with this work. I've noticed when I do constellations about constellations, the main fear of clients is, I'm going to be dealing with my ancestors and trauma and all this big stuff, and you're going to get to the root of it. Am I going to be safe with you? So that's one of the main sort of stance issues we're working with in constellations, because at some instinctive level, they know we're going to go right into this thing with them. And so what they're searching with their field is, can we hold that well with them? Yeah. So thank you for noticing that. One more takeaway for the evening before we go. Nazila, we cannot hear you. I will unmute you. Go ahead and speak. You're on now.
So my take on for the first session is the order of love, the belonging. And I thank you, and thank you the whole group.
Great, yeah. It's nice to see you all. You're all going to meet a few people next time that were not here this time, and et cetera, et cetera. Enjoy your week. Thank you for coming and diving in and starting the adventure. And I'm going to manage participants and unmute everybody. And you can all say goodbye in a cacophony of echoes and feedback.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good day, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Thank you.